"Sir, your daughter looks just like my sister who disappeared," said the homeless man to the millionaire. Michael Thompson had never felt so uneasy walking through the marble halls of his own office building. His 6-year-old daughter, Emily, held tightly to his hand as he tried to quickly finish his errands that Saturday. That's when a man in tattered clothes approached them at the end of the hallway. The man wore a worn-out brown cap, and his hands trembled slightly as he pointed directly at Emily. "Sir, your daughter looks just like my sister who disappeared," the man said in a hoarse but emotional voice. Michael immediately pulled Emily behind him, his heart racing. How had this homeless man gotten into the building? Where was security? "What are you talking about?" Michael asked, keeping his voice steady despite his nerves. The elderly man took another step forward, completely ignoring the tension in the air. His eyes were fixed on Emily with an intensity that made Michael even more uneasy. The eyes, the way her hair falls, even the shape of her face, the man murmured, as if seeing a ghost. "She looks exactly like my little sister when she was that age. Listen, I don't know who you are or how you got in here, but—" "My name is Robert," the man interrupted, removing his cap to reveal messy grey hair. "Robert Wilson. And your daughter. Does she have a birthmark behind her left ear?" Michael felt his blood run cold. How did this stranger know about the small moon-shaped birthmark Emily had? Only close family members knew about that detail. "Daddy, who is this man?" Emily whispered, hiding further behind her father's legs. "No one important, Princess," Michael replied, but his voice came out less convincing than he intended. Robert slowly crouched to Emily's height, keeping a respectful distance. When he smiled, Michael noticed some missing teeth, but there was a genuine warmth in his eyes. "What's your name, little one?" "Emily," she answered timidly, still clutching her father's pants. "Emily, what a beautiful name. My sister's name was Susan, but when she was little like you, I called her Susie." Michael watched the interaction with growing unease. There was something about the way Robert spoke to Emily that deeply unsettled him, not because it felt threatening, but quite the opposite. There was a natural familiarity he couldn't explain. "Listen, Robert, I don't know what you want, but I need you to step away from my daughter now," Michael said, placing protective hands on Emily's shoulders. "I don't want anything, sir. I was just so moved seeing her. My Susan disappeared 40 years ago. Our family was separated when we were children. I never found any of my siblings again." Robert's voice cracked at the end of his sentence. Michael noticed tears forming in the older man's eyes, which only confused him further. This wasn't the reaction he expected from someone with ulterior motives. "Look, I'm sorry for your situation, but I can't help," Michael said, already preparing to leave. "Emily, let's go." "Wait!" Robert exclaimed, standing quickly. "I know this will sound crazy, but do you know anyone from the Wilson family? Susan Wilson Johnson, or maybe Margaret Wilson?" Michael stopped abruptly. Margaret Wilson was his mother-in-law's maiden name, the mother of his wife, Jennifer, who had passed away 2 years earlier. But that had to be just a coincidence. Wilson was a very common last name. "Why are you asking about those names?" Michael questioned, turning back slowly. "Because those were my sisters. Susan was the youngest, and Margaret was the middle child. I was the oldest. When they passed, the 3 of us were separated. I ended up on the streets very young and never managed to find them again." Michael's world seemed to spin. Margaret Wilson Johnson. His mother-in-law had always mentioned having siblings, but said the family had been separated when she was a child. She rarely spoke about it, always growing very sad when the subject came up. "My wife, she was the daughter of a Margaret Wilson Johnson," Michael admitted hesitantly. Robert's eyes lit up as if he had just received the best news of his life. "Margaret, my sister Margaret. Where is she? Is she well? What does she look like now?" The joy on Robert's face made Michael's heart clench. How could he explain that Margaret had passed away? And more importantly, how could he be sure this man was telling the truth? She's no longer with us," Michael said carefully. "She passed 2 years ago." Robert's smile vanished instantly. He staggered back as if punched in the gut. "No, It can't be. I searched for her my whole life. I was so close. Robert leaned against the wall and Michael could see the man was genuinely shaken. If this was an act, it was a convincing one. And Susan? My little sister Susan? I've never heard of any Susan in my wife's family, Michael answered honestly. Then she's still lost out there somewhere, Robert murmured, more to himself than to Michael. Emily, who had been silently watching the whole exchange, let go of her father's hand and stepped closer to Robert. Are you sad? She asked with a child's innocence. I am, little one. I'm sad because I never got to hug my sisters before it was too late. Emily reached out and gently touched Robert's arm. My grandma Margaret always said that when we love someone, they never really leave our hearts. Maybe your sister is right here, she said, pointing to Robert's chest. Michael was surprised by his daughter's sensitivity. Margaret had indeed often said those exact words to Emily when they talked about loved ones who had passed. Robert looked at Emily with such tenderness that Michael felt a lump in his throat. Your granddaughter is very wise, Margaret, Robert whispered, looking upward as if speaking to someone. How did you know she was my grandma? Emily asked, curious. Michael was about to step in but realized he wanted to hear the answer too. Because you have the same kind eyes she did when we were children, and the same gentle way of speaking. My sister Margaret always took care of everyone just like you did for me now. Michael watched Emily absorb his words. It was true. His mother-in-law had been known for her big heart, always looking after someone in the family or neighborhood. Mr. Robert, do you want to come to our house and meet Mommy? Emily asked spontaneously. She has pictures of Grandma Margaret when she was little. Emily, Michael exclaimed, surprised by his daughter's invitation. But Daddy, if he's Grandma's brother, then he's family, right? The simple logic of a child left Michael speechless. Technically, if Robert was telling the truth, he would be Michael's brother-in-law and Emily's great-uncle. I don't want to intrude, Robert said, visibly moved by the offer. I know it must be hard to trust the word of an old man like me. Michael studied the man who claimed to be his late mother-in-law's brother. There was something in his eyes that seemed genuine, but Michael was a businessman. He had learned to be cautious with people who appeared out of nowhere with emotional stories. If you're really Margaret's brother, you must know some things only family would know, Michael said. For example, where did you live when you were children? On Blossom Street, number 127, in St. John's neighborhood. It was a little blue house with a mango tree in the backyard. Margaret loved climbing that tree, even though our mother scolded her for it. Michael felt a chill. Jennifer had told that exact story about her mother many times. Margaret had indeed grown up in a blue house with a mango tree, and Jennifer always laughed when recounting how mischievous her mother was as a child. And do you remember anything else about her? Margaret had a rag doll named Rosie. She carried that doll everywhere, and she was afraid of thunder. She'd always hide under the bed during storms. Once again, Michael recognized the details. Jennifer had mentioned her mother talking about a childhood rag doll, and he had personally seen Margaret grow nervous during thunderstorms. Daddy, so he really knew Grandma? Emily asked, noticing the change in her father's expression. It seems so, Princess, Michael admitted reluctantly. I know this must be very confusing for you, Robert said. If I were in your place, I'd be suspicious too. But I swear on our parents' memory that I'm telling the truth. Michael studied the man in front of him. The worn-out clothes, the look of someone who'd lived on the streets, the calloused hands that spoke of hard labor. How had life been so cruel to this man, while his sister Margaret had built a stable family and life? How did you get separated? Michael asked, curiosity overcoming caution. Robert took a deep breath as if steeling himself to relive an old pain. Our parents passed when I was 12. Margaret was 10, and Susan was only 8. We had no close relatives who could take in all three of us. We ended up in different places. I was sent to a home that wasn't good for children. I managed to run away, but when I went back to look for my sisters, they'd already been taken elsewhere. I never found them again. And you've been on the streets ever since? Michael asked, a pang of pity in his chest. Not always. I worked odd jobs over the years, factories, construction, anything that came up. But I never really settled down. And I never stopped looking for them. I went from town to town, asking at churches, hospitals, schools, anywhere I might find a lead. Emily listened wide-eyed. To her, it sounded like an adventure story. And you never found either of them until now? Never. 40 years of searching. Sometimes I thought I had a lead, but it always turned out to be someone else. Until today. Until I saw your daughter. Robert looked at Emily again with that same recognition that had unsettled Michael earlier. She really does look like Susan when she was little. But now that I know Margaret was your mother-in-law, I understand why. The family genes are strong. Margaret and Susan looked so much alike as children. Michael was beginning to believe Robert's story, but part of him still resisted. How could he be absolutely sure? And more importantly, what would he do if it were true? "Mr. Robert, do you have any documents or anything to prove you're a Wilson?" Michael asked. Robert rummaged through his worn pockets and pulled out an old leather wallet. From it, he carefully removed a yellowed, plastic-coated document. "My birth certificate. Robert Wilson, son of William Wilson and Mary Miller Wilson, born in 1963. Michael examined the document. It really did seem legitimate, and the birth date matched Robert's apparent age. Margaret had been born in 1965, 2 years later. "Margaret was born in 1965, Michael said, 2 years after you." "That's right. She was 2 years younger than me, and Susan was born in 1967. She would have been the youngest of us all." The numbers added up. Michael felt he was running out of excuses to doubt Robert's story. "Daddy, can we take Mr. Robert home with us?" Emily insisted. "Mommy will be so happy to meet Grandma's brother." Michael hesitated. Jennifer would indeed be emotional if she discovered she had an uncle she never knew existed, but Michael also knew his wife was very sensitive when it came to her late mother. How would she react upon learning that Margaret had a brother who spent his whole life searching for her? "I need to think about this more," Michael said. "It's a lot to process all at once." The disappointment on Robert's face was clear, but he tried to hide it. "I understand, Mr. Michael, it really is a lot. I don't want to force anything, just maybe we could talk another day. You could think about what I've said and—" "Where do you live?" Michael asked, cutting Robert off mid-sentence. Robert lowered his eyes, clearly embarrassed. I stay at a shelter nearby, St. Joseph's Shelter, on Whitman Street. But there isn't always space, so sometimes—" "Sometimes you stay on the street," Michael finished. "Sometimes, yes, but don't worry about me, I manage just fine. I'm used to it." Michael looked at Emily, who seemed saddened by the revelation that Robert didn't have a home of his own. Then he looked back at the man who claimed to be his brother-in-law. There was a dignity in Robert, despite all the hardships he had faced in life. "Listen, Robert, here's what I'll do. I'll talk to my wife about all this. If she wants to meet you, I'll come back here to find you. Or you can come to my office on Monday. Right here in this same office building, 20th floor, Thompson Construction." Robert's eyes lit up again. "You'd really do that? Let me meet her. If you really are Margaret's brother, then you're family. And family matters." Emily smiled proudly at her father, clearly approving of the decision. "Thank you so much, Mr. Michael. Really, thank you. I don't even know how to thank you. Just don't disappoint me," Michael said firmly. "If you're lying about anything—" "I swear on our mother's memory that I'm not lying about anything," Robert interrupted vehemently. Michael believed him. There was something in the way Robert spoke about family that sounded absolutely true. "All right then. I'll talk to Jennifer tonight. I'll give you an answer tomorrow." "May I ask, what's your wife's full name?" "Jennifer Margaret Thompson. She uses her mother's name as her middle name." Robert closed his eyes and smiled. "Jennifer Margaret. My sister gave her own name to her daughter. How beautiful." Michael noticed that detail had deeply moved Robert. If he were making all this up, he certainly wouldn't have reacted so naturally to information he couldn't have predicted. "Well then, until tomorrow, Robert." "Until tomorrow, Mr. Michael. And thank you so much, Emily, for being so kind to me." Emily waved cheerfully at Robert as Michael guided her toward the elevator. The whole way home, Michael kept thinking about how he would tell this story to Jennifer. His wife was preparing lunch when they arrived. Jennifer was a delicate woman, with light brown hair and gentle eyes, very much like her mother. She had inherited Margaret's kind heart and always cared deeply for others. "How was work, honey?" she asked, giving Michael a kiss and then crouching down to hug Emily. "Jennifer, something very strange happened today," Michael began, unsure how to approach the subject. "What kind of strange thing?" "We met a man who says he's Grandma Margaret's brother," Emily exclaimed before Michael could answer. Jennifer stopped what she was doing and looked at Michael in surprise. "What do you mean, my mother's brother?" Michael recounted the whole story, from their encounter in the hallway to the conversation they'd had. Jennifer listened silently, her expression shifting between surprise, curiosity, and skepticism. "And you believe him?" she asked when Michael finished. "I wish I didn't, but he knew so many details about your mother's life, things only someone in the family would know." "What kind of details?" Michael repeated the information Robert had shared about the blue house, the mango tree in the backyard, the doll Rosie, and the fear of thunder. Jennifer looked visibly shaken. "My mother did tell me all those stories. But Michael, what if it's just a coincidence? What if he found out this information some other way? How would he know? And why? What would he gain by making this up?" Jennifer thought for a moment. "I don't know. Maybe he wants money. He knows we're a successful family and made this up to take advantage." Michael had considered that possibility too, but something about Robert's demeanor didn't match that of a scammer. "He didn't ask for anything, Jennifer. In fact, he seemed more interested in learning about Margaret than anything else. Mommy, Mr. Robert was really sad when he found out Grandma isn't here anymore," Emily added. "He actually cried." Jennifer looked at her daughter and then at Michael. "So now what? What do we do?" "I told him I'd talk to you. If you want to meet him, I'll arrange it. If not, I'll tell him not to contact us again." Jennifer walked to the kitchen window and stared outside for a few minutes. Michael knew she was wrestling with it. The idea of meeting an uncle she never knew existed must have been both exciting and frightening. "My mother always said she had siblings, but they were separated when they were children," Jennifer finally said. "She always got very sad when she talked about it, said she regretted not looking for them more when she grew up." "So that confirms his story," Michael observed. "It confirms there were siblings, but not that he's one of them." Michael understood his wife's caution. Jennifer had always been more careful than him with strangers. "What do you think we should do then?" Jennifer took a deep breath. I think I want to meet him, but not here at home. At least not the first time. We can arrange a public place." "Mommy, we can take him for ice cream," Emily suggested excitedly. Michael and Jennifer laughed at their daughter's simple suggestion. "That might be a good idea," Jennifer agreed. "Somewhere busy, casual, no pressure. Then it's settled. Tomorrow I'll talk to him and set it up." For the rest of the day, Michael noticed Jennifer was quieter than usual. He knew she was processing the possibility of having found a family member her mother had lost decades ago. That night, after Emily went to bed, Jennifer brought it up again. "Michael, what if he really is my uncle? What if my mother spent her whole life wondering where her siblings were, and now that she's gone, I finally find one of them?" "It'd be an incredible coincidence," Michael admitted, "or it'd be fate. My mother always believed strongly in fate." Michael hugged his wife, sensing the emotion in her voice. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together, okay?" The next day, Michael returned to the office building earlier than usual. He wasn't sure if he'd find Robert there, but he hoped he'd show up as they'd agreed. He didn't have to wait long. Robert was sitting on a bench in the square across from the building, wearing the same clothes as the day before, clearly nervous. "Robert!" Michael called as he got out of the car. The older man quickly stood up and walked toward him. "Mr. Michael, you came! I was afraid you'd changed your mind." "I spoke with my wife. She wants to meet you." The joy on Robert's face was immediate and intense. "She really does. Jennifer wants to meet me." "Yes, she does. But here's how we'll do it. We'll meet this afternoon in a public place. Nothing formal, just a conversation so you can get to know each other." Of course, wherever you'd like, I'll be there." Michael gave him the address of an ice cream parlor downtown and set the time for 3 in the afternoon. "Robert, I need to tell you something. Jennifer is a little nervous. She lost her mother recently and is still dealing with it. Be patient with her, okay?" "Of course. I understand completely. It must be very hard for her." Michael studied Robert for a moment. The man seemed genuinely concerned about Jennifer's well-being, which made Michael trust his intentions even more. "Do you have any better clothes to wear?" Michael asked gently. Robert looked down at his worn-out clothes and seemed embarrassed. "These are the best I have, Mr. Michael, but I can try to wash and iron them." Michael felt a pang of guilt for asking. Of course, this man didn't have many clothing options. "Listen, don't worry about it. What matters is the conversation, not appearances." But Michael knew Jennifer would feel more at ease if Robert looked more presentable. An idea came to him. "Robert, would you let me take you to buy some new clothes? Nothing fancy, just something more suitable for the meeting." Robert looked surprised by the offer. "I can't accept that, Mr. Michael. It's already too much that you're making this meeting happen." "It's no trouble. If you're really family, then it's the least I can do." After much insistence, Robert agreed. Michael took him to a simple clothing store and bought him a pair of dress pants, a shirt, and basic shoes. Nothing extravagant, but enough to make Robert look more put together. "I'll pay you back, Mr. Michael. As soon as I get a job, I'll pay for everything." "Don't worry about that now." At 3 in the afternoon, Michael, Jennifer, and Emily arrived at the ice cream parlor. Michael had chosen the spot on purpose. It was busy enough for Jennifer to feel safe, but it also had a family-friendly atmosphere that would be good for Emily. Robert was already there, waiting at a corner table. The new clothes made a striking difference in his appearance. He looked nervous, fidgeting with his hands, and glancing repeatedly toward the entrance. When he saw the family approaching, Robert stood up immediately. Michael noticed the man's hands were trembling slightly. "Jennifer, this is Robert," Michael introduced them. Jennifer studied Robert's face carefully. Michael could see she was searching for resemblances to her mother. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Jennifer," Robert said, his voice emotional. "You look so much like Margaret when she was young." "How can you be sure? You said you were separated when you were children." "That's true, but I have a very good memory for faces, and you have the same eyes as our mother. Margaret took after Mom and you took after Margaret." Jennifer sat down slowly, still weighing every word Robert said. "Tell me more about my mother when she was little." Robert smiled, and his eyes lit up. "Margaret was the bravest of us 3. She always defended Susan and me when other kids picked on us. She was small, but had an incredible willpower." "That sounds like her," Jennifer admitted. "And she sang all the time. Our mother always said Margaret was born with music in her soul. She made up songs for everything, for brushing teeth, for sweeping the house, for playing." Jennifer seemed impressed. "My mom really loved to sing. She sang to me when I was little, and later she sang to Emily too." "Grandma sang so beautifully," Emily added, joining the conversation. "She knew lots of old songs. Our mother taught us many old songs. Margaret memorized them all," Robert said. "She had an amazing memory for lyrics." Michael noticed Jennifer growing more convinced. The details Robert shared were too specific and personal to be made up. "And what was Susan like?" Jennifer asked. Robert's smile turned a little melancholic. "Susan was the sweetest, always very quiet, very observant. She loved to draw and take care of any animal that showed up at our house, any stray cat, injured bird. Susan always wanted to help." "You said she looks like Emily." "Very much. The hair, the eyes, even the shyness at first, but affectionate later. Susan was like that too." Emily grew interested in the comparison. "I like animals too. I have a hamster named Popcorn." "How sweet. Susan would be so happy to know she has a great niece who loves little animals like she did." "Do you think I'll meet Aunt Susan one day?" Emily asked innocently. The question brought a sad expression to Robert's face. "I hope so, little one. I really hope so. Jennifer noticed the shift in Robert's tone and decided to change the subject. Tell me about yourself, Robert. How was your life after you were separated? Robert hesitated, clearly not wanting to go into difficult details in front of Emily. It was complicated. I moved around a lot, worked many different jobs. I never really settled down because I was always looking for you two. What kind of work did you do? A bit of everything: construction, factories, cleaning, security, anything that paid, and let me travel sometimes to search for my sisters. Michael was struck by the determination that represented. Robert had spent 40 years of his life looking for people he might never find. And you never started your own family? Jennifer asked. No. I always thought I needed to find the family I already had first. The answer deeply moved Jennifer. Michael could see tears forming in her eyes. That's so sad, Uncle Robert, Emily said spontaneously. Michael and Jennifer exchanged glances. Emily had called Robert uncle naturally, as if she already considered him family. Don't be sad for me, Emily, Robert said, clearly touched by being called uncle. Now I've found you, and that's more than I ever dreamed possible. Jennifer discreetly wiped away an escaped tear. Robert, I want to believe you, I really do, but you understand this is so hard for me, right? Discovering I might have an uncle I never knew existed. I completely understand, Jennifer. I know it must feel strange and scary. I don't want to pressure you at all. I just wanted you to know you have family, that Margaret always had someone looking for her, even if she didn't know it. The comment made Jennifer cry openly. Michael took her hand for support. I'm sorry, she said, drying her eyes. It's just that my mum always felt so alone in the world. She used to say that sometimes she had the feeling there were people somewhere thinking about her, but she would never know who they were. She was right. I thought about her every day of my life. And about Susan, too. Jennifer took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. Robert, if you really are my uncle, I'd love to learn more about our family, about my grandparents, about how you all lived. I'd be happy to share everything I remember with you. But I need some time to process all this. It's a lot to take in at once. Of course, take all the time you need. Michael stepped into the conversation. Robert, where will you stay in the coming days? How can we reach you? Well, I'll try to get a spot at the shelter. If I can't, I know a few places in the city where I can stay. Jennifer looked at Michael with an expression he knew well. It was the same look Margaret used to give when she was about to make a generous decision against better judgment. Robert, would you like to stay at our house for a few days? Jennifer asked hesitantly. Michael was surprised by the offer. They had agreed to take things slowly with this situation. Jennifer, he began, I know what you're thinking, Michael, but if he really is my uncle, I can't let him sleep on the streets while we decide whether to believe him or not. Robert seemed stunned by the offer. Jennifer, I can't accept this. You barely know me. It's too much to ask. Your family, Jennifer said firmly, and in our family, no one is left helpless. Michael recognized his wife's stubbornness. Once Jennifer decided to help someone, no argument could change her mind. All right, he relented, but with a few conditions. What conditions? Robert asked. First, you stay in the guest room. Second, no leaving the house without telling us where you're going. Third, while you're with us, you help with chores. Fourth, if at any point I feel you're lying about anything, you leave immediately. I accept all the conditions, Robert said without hesitation. And thank you, you have no idea what this means to me. Daddy, can Uncle Robert sleep in the room near mine? Emily asked excitedly. Of course, Princess. On the way home, Michael wondered if he'd made the right decision. Letting a stranger stay in their house wasn't something he'd normally do, especially with a young daughter. But there was something about Robert that inspired trust, and Jennifer's emotional reaction to learning about her mother seemed too genuine to ignore. At home, Jennifer showed Robert the guest room. It was simple but comfortable, with a single bed and a small wardrobe. It's not much, but I hope it's better than, well, where you've been staying, Jennifer said. Robert looked around the room with a gratitude that was almost moving. Jennifer, I haven't slept in a real bed in over 6 months. This is a palace to me." The raw honesty of his words made Jennifer realize just how hard Robert's life had been. If he really was her uncle, how many nights had he spent without a proper place to sleep while searching for her and her mother? "Robert, you can use the ensuite bathroom whenever you need. The towels are in the closet, and if you'd like to take a shower, feel free." "Thank you so much. Well, I really do need a shower." During dinner, Emily made sure to sit next to Robert and bombarded him with questions about the family. Robert patiently answered each one, always with convincing details. "Uncle Robert, do you remember any stories about Grandma Margaret when she was little?" Emily asked. "I remember plenty. Margaret once tried to teach our cat to ride a bicycle. She tied Mittens to the bike and started pushing it across the backyard. And what happened? Mittens got so mad she scratched Margaret all over." Robert laughed. "Margaret ended up with tiny scratches all over her arms, but she still didn't give up trying to teach tricks to the cat." Jennifer laughed genuinely for the first time since they'd met. "That's so like my mom. She was always stubborn and never gave up easily on anything." "So stubborn, and very protective too. Once an older boy picked on me at school. Margaret, who was 2 years younger and much smaller, went right up and gave him a beating." "Did Grandma scold her?" Emily asked, surprised. "Oh, she did. And our mum got mad at her, but deep down I knew she was proud of Margaret's courage." Michael watched the interaction between Robert and Emily. The man seemed genuinely comfortable with children, and Emily had taken a quick liking to him. Still, Michael kept a discreet watch. After dinner, while Emily watched TV in the living room, Michael called Robert into the office for a private talk. "Robert, I need to be straight with you. I want to believe your story, but I have a family to protect. If you're lying about anything, Mr. Michael, I understand your concern. In your place, I'd be even more cautious. But I swear on everything sacred that I'm not lying. Margaret was my sister and Susan was our younger sister. Do you have any concrete proof? A photo, a document, anything?" Robert hesitated. "I had a few things, but over the years, living on the streets, you know how it is. You lose a lot." "What kind of things did you have?" "A photo of us, the 3 siblings together. It was the only family photo I managed to save when we were separated." "What happened to it?" "It was stolen about 5 years ago. I was sleeping in a shelter, and when I woke up, my backpack with all my things was gone. That backpack had the photo and some other documents." Michael was disappointed. A photo of the 3 siblings together would have been very convincing evidence. "Do you remember any other details only the family would know?" Robert thought for a moment. "Margaret had a small scar on her right knee. She fell off her bike when she was 8 and needed stitches." Michael made a mental note to ask Jennifer about that. Margaret did have a scar on her knee, but Michael wasn't sure how she'd gotten it. "And Susan? What details do you remember about her?" "Susan was left-handed, and she had a tiny birthmark on her left shoulder shaped like a star." Michael noted that too, though he knew it would be impossible to verify since Susan was still missing. "Robert, I'll give you a chance. But if I find out you're lying, or if anything strange happens to my family, nothing will happen, Mr. Michael. I'd protect you all with my life. You're all I have left of my family." The sincerity in Robert's voice was hard to doubt. Michael decided to give him a chance, but would keep a close eye on him. That night, before bed, Michael talked to Jennifer about the scar on the knee. "My mum really did have a scar on her right knee," Jennifer confirmed. "She said she fell off her bike as a kid, and that my grandma was furious because she wasn't wearing any protection." So, another detail he knew that would be impossible to guess. "Michael, I'm starting to believe he really is my uncle." "Me too. But let's stay cautious, okay?" "Okay. But Michael, if he really is my uncle, do you realize what that means? My mom spent her whole life wondering where her siblings were, and now that she's gone, I've found one of them. It's a mix of joy and sadness all at once." Michael hugged his wife, perfectly understanding the emotional conflict she was going through. "Maybe your mother was somehow responsible for making this meeting happen." "You think so?" "I don't know. but the coincidence of running into him right when I took Emily to the company is too big, and you saw how Emily connected with him immediately. It's like she recognized something familiar in him." Jennifer reflected on her husband's words. "Could be. My mother always said the right people come into our lives at the right time." The next morning, Michael woke up early and went to check if Robert was still home. Part of him wondered if the man might have taken advantage of the night to steal something and run away. But Robert was in the kitchen, washing the breakfast dishes he had apparently prepared for the whole family. "Good morning, Mr. Michael. I hope you don't mind, but I thought I could help by making breakfast." "You didn't have to do that. I want to help. It's the least I can do to repay your hospitality." Michael noticed the carefully set table and smelled fresh bread coming from the oven. "You baked bread?" "I learned how when I worked at a bakery a few years ago. I thought Emily might like warm bread for breakfast." Robert's thoughtfulness toward Emily impressed Michael. A con man probably wouldn't bother making fresh bread to win over a 6-year-old. Jennifer and Emily came down for breakfast and were delighted by the surprise. "Uncle Robert, you can cook!" Emily exclaimed happily. "I sure can. When you live alone, you learn to manage." During breakfast, Robert shared more childhood stories. Michael noticed that all the stories were consistent, and Robert never contradicted himself in any detail. "Margaret always woke up very early to help our mother with breakfast," Robert said. "She used to say the day had to start well to end well." "My mother always said that exact phrase," Jennifer exclaimed. "The day has to start well to end well." She learned that from our mother. It was practically a mantra in our house. Once again, Michael was struck by the accuracy of Robert's details. After breakfast, Michael got ready for work. Before leaving, he pulled Jennifer aside. "Are you going to be okay with him here?" "I will. And Michael, if he were going to do something bad, he wouldn't have wasted time baking fresh bread for us, right?" Michael agreed with his wife's logic. Still, he made sure to give her some important numbers to call in case of an emergency. At work, Michael struggled to focus. He kept thinking about the unusual situation of having a possible brother-in-law living in his home. How everything had changed in just 2 days. During lunch, Michael got a call from Jennifer. "Michael, can you come home now?" she said in a strange voice. "What happened? Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, but I need you to come. It's about Robert." Michael's heart raced. Had his suspicions been confirmed? "Jennifer, tell me what happened." "It's better if you see for yourself. It's nothing bad, but it's important." Michael cancelled all his afternoon appointments and rushed home. The whole way, his mind raced with scenarios of what might have happened. When he got home, he found Jennifer in the living room, her face filled with emotion. Emily was playing on the floor, and Robert was sitting on the couch holding something in his hands. "What happened?" Michael asked immediately. "Show him, Robert," Jennifer urged. Robert held out his hand to Michael. In his palm was a simple, worn gold ring. "What is this?" "It was our mother's," Robert explained. "Her wedding ring." Michael looked at Jennifer, who had tears in her eyes. "How did you get this?" "I've always carried it with me. It was the only thing I managed to save when they separated us. I hid it in my shoe and no one ever found it." Jennifer reached out her hand, and Michael saw she was wearing a very similar ring. "This was my mother's," Jennifer explained. "She gave it to me just before she passed away." Michael compared the 2 rings. They were clearly a pair. The same style, the same type of gold, the same distinctive wear. "They're identical," Michael murmured. "Not identical," Robert corrected. "They're a pair. Our father had both rings made at the same time, but one for each hand. Our mother always wore both." Jennifer held Robert's ring next to her own. "They fit together perfectly," she said, showing how one completed the other. Michael was speechless. This was the concrete proof he had asked for. It would be impossible to fake or obtain in any other way a ring that formed a perfect pair with Margaret's. "Jennifer told me Margaret always wore 2 rings but only left one for her. Now I understand why. The other was with me," Robert said. "Michael, this can't be a coincidence," Jennifer said. "He really is my uncle." Michael looked at Robert with new eyes. There was no more doubt. That man was truly his mother-in-law's brother. "Why didn't you show this yesterday?" Michael asked. "Because I wanted you to believe in me for who I am, not because of proof." But when Jennifer told me about the ring Margaret left her, I knew it was time to show mine. The explanation made sense to Michael. It showed an integrity that further strengthened his trust in Robert. "Uncle Robert, now we know you're really part of our family," Emily exclaimed joyfully. "It's true, Emily. Now you know I really am your great uncle." Jennifer hugged Robert for the first time since they'd met. "I'm sorry I doubted you. You don't need to apologize for anything. You were right to be cautious." Michael also hugged Robert, finally allowing himself to accept the man as family. "Welcome to the family, brother-in-law." That night, the atmosphere at home was completely different. Robert was no longer a stranger being tested, but a family member who had finally found his place. During dinner, Robert shared more intimate stories about his childhood with Margaret. Now that he didn't need to prove anything, he opened up more naturally. "Margaret dreamed of being a teacher," he said. "She always played school with me and Susan. She was the teacher, of course, and we were the students." "My mother did become a teacher," Jennifer said excitedly. "She taught for 20 years before retiring." "Really? She got to live her dream?" Robert asked, his eyes shining. "She did, and she loved it. She always said teaching children was the most important thing in the world." "That's wonderful. I'm glad at least one of our childhood dreams came true." "What was your dream?" Emily asked. Robert smiled wistfully. "My dream was to have a big family, a house full of people with lots of kids running around the yard, Sunday lunches with everyone together." "But you do have a big family," Emily protested. "You have us." The child's simplicity and sincerity touched Robert deeply. "You're right, Emily. Now I have you." "And what was Aunt Susan's dream?" Emily continued. "Susan wanted to be a veterinarian. She dreamed of taking care of all the animals in the world." "Did she get to?" Emily asked. "I hope so, sweetheart. I really hope so." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like the video and especially to subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In the following days, Robert became fully integrated into the family's routine. He helped with household chores, played with Emily, and always had interesting stories to share about the places he'd worked. Michael even offered Robert a job at his construction company, but the older man politely declined. "Thank you for the offer, Michael, but I'm already 60 years old. I think it's time for me to stop doing heavy construction work." "Then what would you like to do?" "Honestly, I'd like to keep searching for Susan. Now that I've found you all, I have more hope of finding her too." Robert's determination to locate his younger sister impressed the entire family. For 40 years he hadn't given up, and now he was more motivated than ever. "How will you look for her?" Jennifer asked. "The same way I always have. I'll go from town to town, ask at churches, hospitals, schools. Someone somewhere must know a Susan Wilson." "But Robert, she might have married and changed her last name. She could be using a different name altogether." "That's true, but I have to try. She's the only family I have left to find." "You're not alone anymore," Jennifer said firmly. "We're your family now too." "I know, Jennifer, and you can't imagine how much that means to me. But Susan is important too. She might be somewhere wondering if she has any family, just like I was before I found you all." Michael admired Robert's loyalty to his lost sister. It was the kind of dedication he wished to see in his own family. "If you'd like, I can help with the search," Michael offered. "I have some contacts who might be useful." "I'll take any help I can get, Michael. On my own, I've searched 3 states and found nothing. Maybe with help I can expand the search." In the days that followed, Michael began making discreet inquiries. He used his connections to check public records and databases, looking for any Susan Wilson who might be Robert's sister. It was a harder task than he'd imagined. Susan Wilson was a very common name, and there were hundreds of records to sift through. Meanwhile, Robert focused on earning Emily's trust even more. He taught her old-fashioned games, told stories from his childhood, and even helped her with homework. "Uncle Robert, you're so smart," Emily said one afternoon after he helped her with a math problem. "I'm not, Emily. I've just had many years to learn different things. But didn't you ever go to school? I did, but I stopped very early. I had to start working when I was just a little boy. Emily grew thoughtful. That's sad. Everyone should be able to go to school. You're right. That's why you should make the most of it, okay? Study hard so you can achieve all your dreams. I will. And when I grow up, I'll help you look for Aunt Susan. The child's promise touched Robert deeply. Thank you, Emily. Having you as my great niece is a very special gift. During this time, Jennifer began noticing positive changes in the family dynamic. Robert's presence had brought a different energy to the house, more laughter, more stories, more moments of togetherness. Michael, have you noticed how much happier Emily is? Jennifer remarked one evening. I have. I think having Robert here is good for her. And for me too. Knowing I have an uncle makes me feel less alone in the world. Michael understood what his wife meant. After losing Margaret, Jennifer had been left with no direct relatives from her mother's side. Finding Robert had filled a void she didn't even know existed, and for me it's been an interesting experience too, Michael admitted. Robert is a very wise man. He's been through a lot in life. He has incredible stories. Yesterday he told me about when he worked on a farm in the countryside. It seems he's really lived a full life. 2 weeks after Robert moved into the family home, Michael received an interesting call at work. Michael, this is Richard from the investigation firm you hired. Richard, did you find anything? Maybe. I found a Susan Wilson who might be the person you're looking for. She lives in a town about 200 kilometers from here and is around the age you gave me. Michael felt his heart race. Are you sure? I'm not certain of anything yet. I need more information to confirm if she's the right person. You said her brother remembers some physical details about her? Yes, he does. She was left-handed and had a birthmark on her left shoulder. Perfect. If I can confirm those details, we might have found her. Michael could barely focus on work for the rest of the day. The possibility of helping Robert find his long-lost sister left him feeling very anxious. When he got home, Michael decided not to say anything yet. He didn't want to raise false hopes if the lead turned out to be nothing. But his anxiety didn't go unnoticed by Jennifer. You're acting strange today. Did something happen at work? It's nothing serious, just some complicated projects. Jennifer didn't seem convinced, but didn't press further. The next day, Richard called again. Michael, I have good news and complicated news. Go ahead. The good news is, I've confirmed we've found the right Susan. She is indeed left-handed and has the birthmark on her shoulder that her brother described. Michael felt a burst of joy. That's wonderful. And what's the complicated news? The complicated news is that she doesn't want to be found. What do you mean? When my contact in her town asked some discreet questions, they found out Susan Wilson has lived in isolation for many years. She doesn't keep close contact with anyone and seems to have chosen a very private life. Michael was confused. But that doesn't mean she doesn't want to find her family. Maybe she just gave up searching. It's possible. But my contact said when they mentioned the possibility of siblings looking for her, Susan became very agitated and said she didn't want to talk about family. The news left Michael worried. How would he tell Robert this? Richard, do you think it's worth trying to reach out directly? I think so, but very carefully. If it's done the wrong way, she might disappear again and you'd lose the only lead you have. Michael thanked Richard and pondered the best way to handle the situation. That night, after Emily went to bed, Michael called Jennifer and Robert for a talk. Robert, I have news for you. It could be good news or it could be complicated. What is it? I hired an investigator to help look for Susan, and he found her. Robert's eyes lit up instantly. He found my sister. Where is she? How is she? Calm down, Robert. The situation is more complicated than that. Michael shared everything Richard had discovered. Robert's reaction was one of confusion and sadness. She doesn't want to be found. But why? We don't know. Maybe she had bad experiences in the past. Maybe she gave up believing you were still looking for her. Jennifer moved closer to Robert and took his hand. Or maybe she's afraid. 40 years is a long time, Robert. She might be afraid of being disappointed again. So, what do I do? I can't just show up at her door and scare her. Michael had thought about that. I have an idea. How about we write her a letter? Nothing invasive, just explaining the situation and leaving the choice up to her. A letter? Yes. You can briefly share about your life, about finding Jennifer and Emily, about spending all these years searching for her. Then she can decide whether to respond or not. Robert considered the suggestion. Do you think that could work? I don't know, but at least it would be a respectful way to make contact. If she really doesn't want to be found, at least she'll know she has family looking for her. And if she wants to meet us, she can reach out, Jennifer added. Robert agreed with the idea. All evening, he worked on the letter with Jennifer and Michael's help. It was important to get the tone right, warm but not intrusive, hopeful but without pressure. The final letter read, Dear Susan, my name is Robert Wilson, and I'm your older brother. I know this might be a shock for you to receive a letter like this after so many years, but I had to try to find you. You probably don't remember much about me since we were so young when we were separated, but I never forgot you. For all these 40 years, I've searched for you and our sister Margaret. I have sad news and good news. The sad news is that Margaret passed away 2 years ago. The good news is that she had a beautiful life. She married, had a daughter named Jennifer, and a granddaughter named Emily. Margaret became a teacher just as she always dreamed. I met Jennifer and her family a few weeks ago. They welcomed me into their home, and now I know what it feels like to be part of a family again. Susan, I don't want to pressure or bother you. I just wanted you to know you have a brother, a niece, and a great niece who would love to meet you. If you'd like to talk, we'd be so happy. If you'd rather not reach out, I'll understand and respect your decision. Just know you've always been loved and always will be. With much affection, your brother, Robert. P.S. I still have our mother's wedding ring. Jennifer has the other one. If you'd like, they can be together again. The letter was sent to the address Richard had managed to find. Now all they could do was wait. The following days were filled with anxiety for the whole family. Robert checked the mail every day, hoping for a reply that might never come. A week passed with no news. Robert began to lose heart. Maybe she really doesn't want contact, he said sadly. Or maybe she needs time to process everything, Jennifer offered. Imagine the shock of receiving your letter. That's true, Michael agreed. 40 years is a long time. She might be scared, confused, or even doubting if the letter is real. Emily, who had been following the situation, made a suggestion that surprised the adults. Uncle Robert, why don't you send her a photo of us? Then she'll see you found a real family. The child's idea was brilliant. A photo would show far more than words could about Robert's life now. The next day they took several pictures of the family together. Michael chose one where everyone was smiling naturally and looked genuinely happy. On the back, Jennifer wrote, Susan, this is our family. Robert found us and changed our lives for the better. We hope one day you can be part of it too. With love, Jennifer, Michael, and Emily. The photo was sent with a shorter letter, just reinforcing the invitation to connect. Another week passed. Robert began to lose hope. Maybe I should accept that she doesn't want to be found, he said one night at dinner. Don't give up yet, Uncle Robert, Emily pleaded. Sometimes people need more time to make important decisions. The wisdom of the 6-year-old impressed everyone at the table. Emily is right, Jennifer agreed. It doesn't hurt to wait a little longer. The next day, which was a Monday, Michael was getting ready for work when the phone rang. Hello? Please, I'd like to speak with Robert Wilson, said a woman's voice on the other end. Michael felt his heart race. May I ask who's calling? There was a long pause. My name is Susan. Susan Wilson Johnson. I received a letter from him. Michael nearly shouted with emotion but held himself back. Susan! Of course, one moment please. Robert, he called. Robert appeared in the kitchen, still in his pajamas. What is it, Michael? Michael handed him the phone with a huge smile. It's for you. It's Susan. Robert looked at the phone as if it were an alien object. His hands began to tremble. "Susan," he said hesitantly into the phone. "Hi, Robert. It's me." The voice that answered was soft and slightly shaky. Robert sank heavily into a chair. "Susan. My little sister, Susan. You have no idea how many years I've dreamed of hearing your voice again." "Me too, Robert, me too." Jennifer and Michael realized this was a private conversation and discreetly left the kitchen, though they stayed close enough to step in if needed. "How are you, Susan? Are you okay?" "I'm surviving. And you? The letter said you spent all these years looking for me." "I did. I searched for you and Margaret. I never stopped." There was an emotional pause. "The letter said, Margaret, that she's gone." "Sadly, yes, 2 years ago. But Susan, she had a good life. She got married, had a beautiful daughter, became a teacher like she always dreamed." "A teacher?" Susan asked, a smile in her voice. "She managed to become a teacher." "She did. And she was dearly loved by everyone who knew her." Susan began to cry softly on the other end. "I always hoped that one day the two of you would show up at my door. But as the years passed, I gave up believing. I never gave up, Susan, and now I've found you. Robert, I need to tell you something. When I got your letter, I was so afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid it was some kind of scam. Afraid of being disappointed again. Afraid of finding out you had died and someone was pretending to be you." "I completely understand. In your place, I'd be suspicious too. But then the photo arrived, and I saw you with that beautiful family, and I knew it was true. You have the same smile from when we were children." Robert laughed through his tears. "And you have the same sweet voice as always. Robert, I really want to meet you and your new family, but I have to warn you, well, my life hasn't been easy. I'm not the same person I was when we were kids. None of us are, Susan. I've been through a lot too, but what matters is that now we can be together again." Do you think I could come visit? Just for a few days so we can talk and get to know each other again?" "Of course you can. When do you want to come?" "If you don't mind, I'd like to come this weekend. I need a few days to get things in order." "Perfect. Susan, you have no idea how happy I am." "Me too, my brother. Me too." After they hung up, Robert sat in the chair for several minutes, just processing what had happened. Jennifer and Michael approached him. "So?" Jennifer asked eagerly. "She's coming to visit us this weekend," Robert said, his voice thick with emotion. 40 years, and I'll finally see my little sister again." Michael hugged Robert, genuinely happy for him. "That's wonderful, brother-in-law. Uncle Robert, now we'll have 2 aunts," Emily exclaimed when she heard the news. "It's true, Emily. Now our family is going to be even bigger." In the days that followed, the house was filled with celebration. Everyone helped prepare the guest room for Susan and planned activities for the weekend. Emily was especially excited about getting to know another aunt. "Uncle Robert, does Aunt Susan like children?" "She adored them when we were little. She always took care of animals and any younger child who showed up on our street. Then she'll like me." "I'm sure she will, Emily." On Friday night, the evening before Susan's arrival, Michael noticed Robert was nervous. "Is everything all right, Robert?" "I'm a little anxious. 40 years is a long time, Michael. What if we don't recognize each other? What if we have nothing in common anymore?" "Robert, you're siblings. Some things never change." "I hope you're right." Jennifer joined the conversation. "Robert, what exactly are you afraid of?" "I'm afraid Susan will be disappointed in me. She might be expecting to find the older brother she remembers, and instead, she'll meet an old man who spent his life on the streets." "Robert, you're not just an old man who spent his life on the streets," Jennifer said firmly. "You're a man who dedicated 40 years of your life searching for your family. That shows incredible character." "Jennifer is right," Michael agreed. "Susan will see who you really are, a loyal, caring, and determined person." Their words reassured Robert a little, but he still slept poorly that night. On Saturday morning, Susan called to say she'd arrive around 2 in the afternoon. The whole family was eager. Emily made sure to help Robert get ready for the reunion. "Uncle Robert, you look so handsome," she said after he changed. "Thank you, Emily. Do you think Aunt Susan will like me?" "Of course. You're the best great-uncle in the world." At 2 o'clock sharp, a taxi stopped in front of the house. Everyone gathered in the living room, nervous and excited. Robert went to the door and waited. A few seconds later, the doorbell rang. When Robert opened the door, he saw a woman around 55 years old, her graying hair in a ponytail with kind eyes and a shy smile. "Robert?" she asked. "Susan, my little sister Susan." They looked at each other for a moment that felt like forever. Then Susan took a step forward and hugged Robert tightly. "I missed you so much," she said, crying. "Me too, Susan. Me too." They stood embraced in the doorway for several minutes, crying and laughing at the same time. Michael, Jennifer, and Emily watched, moved, knowing they were witnessing a historic moment. Finally, Robert led Susan inside. "Susan, these are the most important people in my life. This is Jennifer, our Margaret's daughter. This is Michael, her husband. And this is Emily, our great-niece." Susan looked at each of them with warmth and curiosity. "Jennifer, you look just like Margaret when she was your age," Susan said. "And you, Emily, are the most beautiful child I've ever seen." Emily was shy at first, but soon warmed up to Susan. "Aunt Susan, do you like animals too?" Susan smiled. "I love them, Emily. Why do you ask?" "Uncle Robert said you took care of all the little animals when you were kids." "That's true, and I still do. I have 3 cats and 2 dogs at home." "5 pets," Emily exclaimed in awe. The conversation flowed naturally from there. Susan talked about her life, how she'd become a veterinarian like she'd always dreamed, and how she'd married briefly, but later chose to live alone with her animals. "I've always been too shy for relationships," she explained. "After we were separated, I had a hard time trusting people." "I understand," Robert said. "I also never managed to have a proper relationship with anyone. I always felt like something was missing." "And now? How do you both feel?" Jennifer asked. Robert and Susan exchanged glances. "Complete," they said almost at the same time. During lunch, Susan proved to be an interesting and caring person. She had brought gifts for everyone, a book about animals for Emily, a bouquet of flowers for Jennifer, and a new shirt for Michael. "And for Robert?" Emily asked. Susan smiled mysteriously and pulled something from her bag. It was an old photo, yellowed with time. "I managed to save this all these years," she said, handing the photo to Robert. It was a picture of the 3 siblings together, exactly as Robert had described. Margaret in the middle, Robert on one side, and Susan on the other, all smiling at the camera. Robert held the photo with trembling hands. "I thought I'd never see this photo again. Mine was stolen a few years ago. I always carried it with me. It was the only concrete memory I had of the 2 of you." Jennifer looked at the photo and immediately recognized her mother. "My mother was beautiful," she said emotionally. "She was the prettiest of the 3 of us," Susan agreed, "and she had the kindest heart in the world." "That never changed," Michael remarked. "Margaret remained the most generous person I ever knew." "I'm glad to hear that," Susan said. "Sometimes I wondered if life had changed her sweet nature." That afternoon, the siblings talked about their lives, reminisced about childhood stories, and filled in the gaps of 40 years apart. Susan shared how she had been adopted by a family of veterinarians, which explained her profession. She'd had a comfortable life but always felt an emptiness not knowing where her siblings were. "I even hired investigators a few times," she revealed, "but they never found anything." "That's because I was always moving," Robert explained. "I never stayed in one place for too long." "And I got married and changed my last name," Jennifer added. "That must have made the search harder too." "What matters is that we're all together now," Susan said. That evening, after Emily went to bed, the adults continued talking in the living room. Susan had adapted well to the family setting and seemed genuinely happy. "Susan, can I ask you something personal?" Michael said. "Of course." Why did it take you so long to respond to Robert's letter? Susan hesitated for a moment. To be honest, I was scared. All these years, I built a safe but lonely life. The idea of opening my heart to people again terrified me. What made you change your mind? The photo you sent. I saw Robert smiling in a way I remembered from our childhood, and I saw a family that clearly loved him. That gave me courage. You don't regret coming, do you? Jennifer asked. Not at all. In fact, I'm thinking of moving closer to all of you. The statement surprised everyone. Really? Robert asked excitedly. Really? I'm tired of living in isolation. I want to be part of this family if you'll have me. Of course we will, Jennifer exclaimed. You'll always be welcome. And Emily would be thrilled to have you nearby, Michael added. Susan smiled, looking more relaxed than she had since arriving. Then it's settled. I'll start arranging the move next week. The following days were a continuous celebration. Susan extended her visit to help plan the move and spend more time getting to know her newfound family. Emily was absolutely enchanted by Susan. The two spent hours talking about animals and playing together. Aunt Susan, when you move here, can you bring your pets? Emily asked. Of course I can, but first I need to find a house with a big yard for them. I can help look, Emily offered. Michael and Jennifer exchanged glances, seeing an opportunity. Susan, how about you stay here with us while you look for your own place? Jennifer suggested. I don't want to take advantage of your hospitality. It's no trouble at all, Michael assured. We have plenty of space, and it would be good for Emily to have you around. And for me too, Robert added. 40 years apart is far too long. I don't want to be separated from you again. Susan was moved by the offer. If you're sure it won't be a bother, we're sure, the whole family replied at once. And so Susan Wilson Johnson moved into the Thompson home, bringing with her 5 pets and decades of pent-up love. Her integration into the family was even smoother than Robert's had been. Susan had a warm and caring way about her that quickly won everyone over. She took on the role of caring for neighborhood animals that showed up hurt or sick, turning part of the Thompsons' backyard into a makeshift veterinary clinic. Aunt Susan, why don't you charge the neighbors for taking care of their pets? Emily asked one afternoon. Because some of them can't afford a vet, Emily, and I can't bear to see an animal suffer. You're so kind, Aunt Susan. I'm not kind, sweetheart. I just do what I think is right. Michael noticed how Susan had brought a different energy to the house. Now there was always an animal recovering in the yard, always neighbors stopping by to thank her for caring for their pets, always movement and life. Jennifer, our home has turned into an animal sanctuary, he remarked one evening, but he was smiling. And does that bother you? Not one bit. In fact, I think it's been good for all of us, especially for Emily. Emily had truly blossomed with Susan around. The little girl now seriously talked about becoming a vet when she grew up, inspired by her aunt. Robert, meanwhile, had found a new purpose in life. He helped Susan with the animals and had become something of an unofficial veterinary assistant. Robert, you have a natural gift with animals, Susan commented one day. Maybe it's genetic. You've always been good with them too. Could be. Or maybe we learn to be kind because we know what it's like to be lost and in need of care. Susan's observation was profound and touched Robert deeply. 3 months after Susan's arrival, the Thompsons' lives had completely changed. The house was always full of activity, love, and laughter. Michael had offered Susan a job at a veterinary clinic owned by a friend, but she had declined. I'd rather work independently and be able to help any animal, whether their owner can pay or not. Her decision made Michael admire his sister-in-law even more. One day, Susan made an announcement that surprised the whole family. I've decided I want to adopt a child. Really? Jennifer asked, stunned. Really? All these years I've cared for abandoned animals, but now I realize I can also care for children who need a family. Robert was moved by his sister's decision. Susan, that's wonderful. You've always been so maternal. But are you sure? Michael asked. Adopting a child is a huge responsibility. I'm absolutely sure. And if you'll allow me, I'd like the child to grow up here, close to Emily and all of you. Of course, Emily exclaimed before her parents could respond. I'd love to have a cousin. Jennifer and Michael exchanged glances and smiled. If this is what you want, Susan, we fully support you, Jennifer said. And we'll help however we can, Michael added. In the following months, Susan began the adoption process. It was a long and bureaucratic procedure, but she was determined. During this time, something interesting happened. An elderly neighbor named Mrs. Grace began visiting the house regularly to see the animals Susan cared for. Dr. Susan, my cat Mittens isn't eating well, she said one afternoon. I'll examine her, Mrs. Grace. Can you leave her here with me for a few days? Mrs. Grace was an 80-year-old woman who lived alone. Her children had moved to other cities, and she only had the cat for company. Susan realized Mrs. Grace was visiting more for human companionship than for the cat's sake. Mrs. Grace, would you like to have dinner with us tonight? Susan offered. I don't want to be a bother, Doctor. It's no bother at all. We'd love to have you. From that day on, Mrs. Grace became a regular presence in the Thompson household. Emily adopted her as a surrogate grandmother, and the elderly woman was overjoyed by the child's attention. Emily reminds me of my granddaughter when she was little, Mrs. Grace remarked one day. It's been so long since I've seen her. Why, Mrs. Grace? Emily asked. She lives very far away, dear, and I'm too old to travel. Susan had an idea. Mrs. Grace, how about we help you get in touch with your granddaughter? Maybe she can come visit you. The elderly woman's eyes lit up. Do you really think that's possible? Michael volunteered to help with the arrangements. Within days, he had located Mrs. Grace's granddaughter and organized a visit. The reunion was emotional. The granddaughter, named Samantha, had lost contact with her grandmother and didn't know how to find her. Grandma, I've looked for you for so long, Samantha said, crying. When you moved from the old house, I couldn't find you anymore. I looked for you too, my dear, but I didn't know how. Mrs. Grace's story echoed the experiences of Robert and Susan. Another family reunited thanks to the efforts and generosity of the Thompsons. Michael, our house has become a family reunification center, Jennifer commented, though she was clearly proud. And are you complaining? Not at all. I think we're making a difference in so many lives. Indeed, the Thompson home had become a neighborhood landmark. Susan cared for the animals. Robert helped with small repairs for those in need. Jennifer advised parents struggling with their children's schooling. And Michael occasionally offered job opportunities to people in difficult situations. Emily watched it all and learned valuable lessons about generosity and kindness. Daddy, why do we help so many people? She asked one day. Because when we can help and don't, we waste a chance to make the world better, Princess. And because family is whoever stands by us when we need them, Jennifer added. Sometimes family isn't just those who share our blood. Like Uncle Robert and Aunt Susan. Exactly. And like Mrs. Grace and all the people we care for. Emily thought about it. Then our family is really big. Yes, it is, Emily. And that's a wonderful thing. 6 months later, Susan received approval for adoption. She would become the mother of an 8-year-old boy named Nathan, who had spent years in the foster system waiting for a family. Aunt Susan, what's Nathan like? Emily asked eagerly. He's a very special boy, Emily. He loves animals, is very smart, and has a huge heart. I think you two will get along great. Will he be my cousin? Yes, and you'll be his older cousin. Emily was thrilled by the responsibility. When Nathan arrived, he was clearly nervous and wary. He had been through several failed placements and was afraid of another disappointment. Hi, Nathan, I'm Emily. I want to be your friend. Nathan looked at her curiously. You really mean that? I do, and I'll show you all of Aunt Susan's little animals. Do you like animals? I love them, Nathan replied, starting to relax. Then you're going to love it here. We have 3 cats, 2 dogs, a hamster, and there's always some injured little animal recovering in the backyard. Nathan's eyes lit up. Really? Can I help take care of them? Of course. Aunt Susan teaches everything about caring for little animals. From that moment on, Nathan fit perfectly into the family. He had not only found a loving mother in Susan, but an entire extended family who welcomed him with open arms. Robert became a father figure to Nathan, teaching the boy practical skills and sharing life stories. "Uncle Robert, have you really slept on the street before?" Nathan asked one day. "I have, Nathan, many times." "Weren't you scared?" "I was terrified, but I learned that even in the toughest situations, there's always hope things will get better." "How did you know they would?" "I didn't, but I kept believing. And look where that got me," Robert said, gesturing to the family gathered in the yard. Nathan took the lesson to heart and began to see Robert as a hero. Michael watched how the family dynamic had evolved. In less than a year, they had gone from a small nuclear family to a large, complex one, full of love and purpose. "Jennifer, are you happy with all these changes?" he asked one evening. "Happier than I ever imagined I could be. You know, when my mother died, I felt so alone in the world. Now I feel part of something much bigger." "And you don't miss our simpler life before?" Jennifer thought for a moment. "Sometimes I miss the quiet, but I'd never trade what we have now. Our home is full of love, Michael. That's what matters." Michael agreed completely. The house truly was full of love, but also purpose and meaning. A year after Robert had come into their lives, the family decided to throw a party to celebrate. A big gathering was organized in the backyard, with all the neighbors and friends who had become part of their extended family. Mrs. Grace was there with her granddaughter Samantha. Susan was radiant with Nathan. Robert had gotten a part-time job helping at a pet store and felt useful and productive. Emily, now 7, moved through the party like a little hostess, introducing people to each other and telling everyone how her family had grown. "Everyone, this is Uncle Robert, my grandma's brother who was lost," she announced proudly. "And this is Aunt Susan, who takes care of all the little animals. And this is my cousin Nathan, who Aunt Susan adopted." Michael watched from a distance, moved by his daughter's ability to embrace all these changes so naturally and joyfully. During the party, Robert gave a speech that touched everyone. "A year ago, I was a lost man with no family or place in the world. Today, I look around and see more love than I ever dreamed of having in my whole life. It's not just about finding lost family. It's about creating new family with the people we choose to love." Susan finished her brother's thought. "And about discovering that family isn't just who you're born with, but who chooses to stay with you, who celebrates your joys and supports you in hard times." Jennifer wiped away a tear. "My mother always said love multiplies when it's shared." Now I completely understand what she meant. Emily raised her little hand. "Can I say something too?" "Of course, Princess," Michael said. "I want to thank Uncle Robert for showing up and making our family bigger, and I want to thank Aunt Susan for bringing Nathan, and I want to thank Nathan for being my cousin, and I want to thank all the little animals for being our friends, and—" "Emily, breathe," Jennifer laughed. "Oh, and I want to thank Mrs. Grace for being our grandma in our hearts." Mrs. Grace cried with emotion when she heard Emily call her grandma. As the party continued, Michael reflected on how life had changed. A chance encounter in a hallway had completely transformed their family dynamic. They had learned that sometimes the best things in life come when we least expect them. Susan approached him in the middle of the party. "Michael, can I ask you something?" "Of course, Susan." "Have you ever regretted letting Robert into your lives?" Michael thought carefully before answering. "Never, Susan. Not for a second. Robert and you brought something into our lives we didn't even know was missing." "What?" "Purpose. Before, we lived a good life, but it was almost automatic. Now we live a life with meaning. Everything we do impacts others in a positive way." Susan smiled. "Thank you for accepting us. Thank you for opening the door when Robert showed up. Thank you for showing up. Our family is so much better with you in it." That night, after all the guests had left and the children were asleep, the adults sat in the backyard for one last conversation. "Robert, do you ever think about what your life would have been like if you hadn't found us?" Jennifer asked. "I do. I'd probably still be searching for you, or maybe I would have given up and lived in complete isolation." "And you, Susan?" "I'd probably still be taking care of my animals, but I'd never have known what it's like to be part of a real family. I never would have adopted Nathan. I never would have discovered how much love I'm capable of giving." Michael stood up and looked around the backyard, where a few animals slept peacefully and children's toys were scattered. You know what's funny? When this all started, I was worried about protecting my family from a stranger. I never imagined that stranger would end up expanding my family in such a beautiful way. And now, how do you feel? Robert asked. I feel blessed. I'm grateful for learning that sometimes the best things in life come disguised as problems or complications. Jennifer moved closer to her husband and took his hand. Remember when you said you'd talk to me about Robert before making any decisions? I do. If you had to make that choice again today, would you do anything differently? Michael looked at Robert and Susan, then at the house where Emily and Nathan slept soundly. Yes, I'd do something different. Everyone looked at him in surprise. I'd invite you to live here from day one. I wouldn't waste a single minute questioning whether you were really family. Because true family is recognized by the heart, not by documents. Robert was moved by Michael's words. Michael, you and Jennifer gave me more than a home. You gave me back my identity. For the first time in 40 years, I know exactly who I am. I'm Margaret's brother, your brother-in-law, Emily's great-uncle, and Nathan's uncle. And I learned it's never too late to have a family, Susan added, and that real love has no age limit or expiration date. Jennifer looked up at the starry sky. Mum, if you're watching from wherever you are, I want you to know your siblings are doing well, and they're exactly as you always said they were, special people, full of love to give. They sat in silence for a few minutes, each lost in their own thoughts and feelings. So now, what's the next step? Michael asked. The next step is to keep being a family, Robert answered. To keep taking care of each other, to keep growing together, and to keep helping others find their own families, Susan added. Because family is about this. It's about finding your place in the world and helping others find theirs too, Jennifer concluded. Emily appeared at the front door, still half asleep. Why are you all talking out here? She asked. We're just talking about how happy we are to be a family, Princess, Michael explained. Emily walked over and snuggled into her father's lap. I'm happy too. Our family is the best family in the world. Why do you think that? Jennifer asked. Because we always have room for one more person. And because we help each other. And because even when bad things happen, we always stick together. The wisdom of the 7-year-old perfectly summed up everything they had learned that extraordinary year. Nathan also appeared, looking for Emily. Emily, why did you get out of bed? I came to talk to the adults. Do you want to stay here with us? Nathan joined the group and sat in Susan's lap. Mum, Susan, can I ask you something? Of course, my son. If Uncle Robert hadn't found you, would I never have had a family? Susan hugged Nathan tighter. You would have found a family one way or another, Nathan. Maybe it would have been different, but you would have found one. Special people like you always find their place in the world. But I like our family. And we love having you here, Robert said. You've made our family even more special. Michael looked around at all those faces that were now part of his daily life. A year ago, he never dreamed his family could be so big and so full of love. Everyone, I think we should go to bed. Tomorrow is Sunday, and we have another full day ahead. Family Sunday, Emily said happily. Every day is family day now, Jennifer corrected. And that's the most beautiful thing in the world. As everyone headed inside, Michael took one last look at the backyard. Tomorrow there would be more animals to care for, more neighbors to help, more stories to share. He thought about how a simple chance meeting in a hallway had changed so many lives. Robert had found the family he'd been searching for 40 years. Susan had discovered she didn't have to live in isolation. Nathan had gained a mother and a loving family. Emily had learned about generosity and unconditional love. Jennifer had found relatives she never knew existed. And he himself had discovered that true wealth wasn't in the money he had, but in the love he shared. Michael, are you coming? Jennifer called from the door. I'm coming, he replied. Before going inside, Michael looked up at the sky one more time and whispered, Thank you, Margaret. Thank you for raising such special siblings, and thank you for letting us find them. A gentle breeze swept through the yard at that moment, almost like a loving response from somewhere far away. Michael smiled and stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Inside, his family, large, complex, noisy, and absolutely perfect, was settling in for another night of peaceful rest. Emily was already in bed but hadn't fallen asleep yet. "Daddy, do you think more lost people will come into our lives?" "I don't know, Princess." "Why?" "Because if they do, we have plenty of love to give them too." Michael kissed his daughter's forehead. "We do, Emily, we always will." "Good night, Daddy. Good night, family." "Good night, Princess." Michael turned off the light and left the room. In the hallway, he found Jennifer waiting for him. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How 1 year can change an entire life." "For the better, much for the better." They walked together to their own room, passing by the room where Susan and Nathan slept, and the room where Robert rested in his own bed after 40 years without a place to call home. "Jennifer?" "Thank you for opening your heart to them. Thank you for trusting me when I wanted to bring Robert home. I'll always trust you, especially when it comes to matters of the heart." They lay down and stayed quiet for a few minutes, listening to the sounds of the house, the purring of a cat, the steady breathing of the children, the soft murmur of Robert and Susan talking in the next room. "Michael? Do you think my mother would be proud of how everything turned out?" Michael thought about the question for a moment. "I'm sure she would be proud. And more than that, I think she'd be happy to know that the siblings she spent her whole life searching for finally found each other, and a family to love." "I hope so." "I'm certain of it, Jennifer. I'm certain." With that quiet assurance in their hearts, the Thompson family, now much larger than any of them could have imagined, slept peacefully, knowing they had found something rare and precious, a place in the world where everyone was loved exactly as they were. The next day, as the sun rose over the house full of life and love, a new week began, a week that would bring new challenges, new joys, new animals to care for, and perhaps new people to love. But one thing would remain constant. They would face everything together as a family that had learned true love knows no limits, never expires, and always has room for one more. And Emily was right. It really was the best family in the world. The end. Now tell us what you thought of this heartwarming family reunion story. How did you feel when Robert finally found his siblings after 40 years of searching? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more touching stories.